Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Diablo 4. It's season 11 very soon, and with that we enter the season a divine intervention. So fellow Necromancer mains, what are we going to be using to level this time around to get into torment's early endgame, and then of course swap to the planned endgame build? Well, in Season 11, we have quite the fun concept from Minion Necromancer, but not the familiar mage-focused one. We have a brand new unique coming to the game, Grave Bloom, which is a one-handed mace. This encourages the Golem life for once, which is a fresh take on the Minion Necromancer, which is usually about your skeleton mages. The weapon itself provides the important affix to make the Golem attack twice, with levels to Golem Mastery, which are great, but the unique effect here is that you will now raise 3 smaller Golems, dealing less damage than normal, but they gain a solid 30% attack speed. We know that this unique will come from the Beast in the Ice, so once we hit Torment 1, we should be looking for that as soon as possible, so that's probably when we'd look to change from the leveling build into our Golem-focused endgame one after that. I think this is going to be heavily encouraged by the devs though in the season journey. As usual, they give you aspects and reward tied to, new concepts usually. So I fully expect Minion and Golem specific Minion Necromancer to be encouraged in the season journey, making it a fantastic choice for the leveling route. So what are we going to do on the way then? Let's cover it. Changes for the Minion Necromancers should be addressed, such as the change to Hellbent Commander. They've now removed the requirement for controlling 7 or more minions for the benefit, which is of course 10% times summon damage per point. With this change, it will get going faster and be more consistent during leveling, but obviously importantly for the Golem concept, if you're going to be losing your mages and your skeletons, you're not going to reach 7 minions. So with this change, we'll actually benefit from it in the new build. They also changed the key unique Ring of Mendel. They've increased the damage from its perk, capping out at 900% before, now it's up to 1100%. And Bone Golem's combo attack, specifically the 2 swings, those now count as a single attack, so it works properly with Ring of Mendel. So they've obviously tested and thought that one out, which is good. So it's simply a stronger unique for the minion build when you're leveling, or whether you're thinking about for the Golem. I will also mention a key mechanic that was updated in Season 10. All Necromancer minions are now resummoned when the Necromancer is resurrected. Basically, if you ever die during leveling, maybe hit early torment, which is when that probably starts to happen. Since last season, minions are all going to get back when you do. Instead of having to work out some corpses with no damage as a minion build, with no minions, then start to build back your army. So I can't tell you how much of a difference this makes. As soon as you hit Torment 1, playing minion builds has always been overly punished by this mechanic, so it was really nice last season, and it's going to feel even better when you actually commit to a minion build. I also want to mention a leveling change. The Undercity buffs. Most rewards in the Undercity have been buffed with a focus on ensuring that rarer pre-torment tributes are actually more rewarding. So for us leveling, they've significantly increased the potency of the Tribute of Growth, that's the XP one, before level 60. And also the potency of experience orbs that actually spawn during those runs before level 60. So based on this, growth should be worth running as soon as you have it when leveling. Testing obviously needed. I'll also mention the season mechanic, which is not going to be that relevant for leveling, sanctification. The idea is that you take gear and sanctify it. So you could give it new stats, greater affixes, even new aspects. But after that, the item can't be modded like a dud. So obvious stuff like no tempering or masterworking after that. But you will be able to change the gems and runes, which is at least something. It certainly seems like the idea is to take an item that's like mostly complete and try to ultra roll it. The other part of the season is going to be Divine Gifts, which lets you juice up specific content for improved rewards. And you've got slots to either change it to be Corrupted or Purified. Corrupted adding challenge, Purified giving you benefits, and even increased rewards. But naturally, the Purified slots are going to be a bit harder to get your hands on, as we'll understand and break down as we progress the season. Which is obviously a clever way for them to let us use the strongest builds of the season while engaging with endgame content that's harder but more rewarding if your setup can handle it. But these concepts shouldn't massively affect your leveling experience, more like the endgame one, which we'll cover at the time. So let's move into the leveling skill tree. Right, so for your minion leveling, it kind of gets cut into 2. The reason for that is because you don't start with all of your summons, and eventually we're going to reach Golem, right? Which then takes up a skill on your bar. So the downside of Minion Necromancer builds is it's just very expensive on your skill bar. So we need initially like raw damage and burst, and then we have to transition skills out because we can't fit them on the bar. So the initial points go into getting to Sever. Sever is solid as a sort of dump of your essence because it increases the damage for each minion you have, and then we also spawn corpses on top. So it's just a really reliable initial core skill to use with a minion build before we really get going. Then each point you put into it is actually going to increase the damage that it does, both on initial and return. So we will be investing in this to get us further into the tree. So with 5 points into Sever, we can now get into Skeletal Warrior Master, which brings us to the next area of the tree. where we'll initially take Iron Maiden and specifically take Enhanced Iron Maiden. This is the classic trick when leveling to have a way to curse enemies, but also make it completely free. So everything that you're interacting with is going to be cursed, and it doesn't cost you anything. In fact, it starts to generate essence based on the amount that it hits. So while you have essence problems while leveling, which you will, as you continuously dump everything into Sever while managing your minions, it's just a fantastic trick. But long term, you want to swap to Decrepify, which you will do before long for the classic Abhorrent Decrepify, helping your cooldowns. Right there, we just need 3 points to get to the next area, which is easy because we want Skeletal Mage Mastery. At this point, we want to fill up our bar. We have 2 empty slots at this point, so a quick investment into your Corpse Tendrils for the pull-in. We can get some nice vulnerable gen from Plagued, and the classic Blighted Explosion from Corpse Explosion gets us all the way to 1 point from the final tree here. So we put 1 point into Amplify damage, so everything we're cursing with Iron Maiden, or say Decrepify, is taking more damage from us. Here we'll be going into the ultimate Soul Rift, which is just ridiculous while you're leveling. It deals damage and AoE around you, gives you a barrier. By the time that you're ready to start juicing up your Golem, your bars are going to be overly full. So that's when we're going to drop something basic like Reap. And we can start investing in our Golem with Golem Mastery, and powering ourselves up and the ultimate through Finality. At this stage, you just have 1 point before you can get to your key passive, so this is probably a great time to drop the Enhanced Iron Maiden and go into that Decrepify, picking up Abhorrent specifically and refunding the points from Iron Maiden. With that, we have our key passive, which of course is going to be Kalen's Edict, to give us the all-important attack speed for ourselves and the minions. Then we just go back down the line and sort of fill in everything we've ignored, such as the all-important Hellbent Commander, which will be buffed in Season 11 as we talked about. Going back up to Death's Embrace to fill that up. Getting the standard Shadow passives. Reaper's Pursuit for movement speed when leveling is super good. And then the damage and benefits of both Terror and Gloom. We'll fill up Amplified damage. A Warrior Mastery. If at any point during this you're having essence problems, you can pick up Grim Harvest and fully commit to this 3 out of 3, however much you need, and take points out based on how essence is going for you. But we'll definitely want full Fuel by Death. So as we consume corpses by buffing our minions or using Corpse Explosion, we have this multiplier for our damage. And there's less valuable options, like Necrotic Fortitude, Titan's Fall for the elites. If you need armor, you invest in Spiked Armor, which is going to be a really nice crutch when you're getting into Torment for the first time. We can get some RNG with Hewed Flesh to spawn corpses. And at a certain point, we're going to be completely dropping Sever and converting that into Blight, because Supernatural Blight is going to give us a lot more damage by this point. Rather than flat damage, it will be a multiplier, 10% times increased shadow damage to enemies within the Blight pools. So this is how you're going to be using your essence at that point. And so with these remaining points, you're just going to fill in the blanks, fully lift up our Soul Rift, pick up full Necrotic Carapace, get some movement speed from Death's Approach. And then with the 3 remaining points, probably invest in Spiked Armor or Necrotic Fortitude. I'd probably go for the armor while leveling. And remember, you can be pretty fluid with these points towards the end here, because we'll probably be considering swapping to our endgame build anyway. Okay, let's blast forward for this next section. Firstly, we have our warriors with Reapers with upgrade 1 for cooldown reduction. Second, you have the cold mages for essence generation during leveling. You can always go for the shadow mages upgrade 1 for a damage multiplier if you feel your essence is fine. And lastly, for the golem, of course, it's blood with upgrade 1 as an easy choice to give you massive survivability while leveling and getting into early torment. Next, we have aspects to aim for. Of course, you'll be changing lots of your gear, especially your weapon, too often to put any of your aspects intentionally on, but your amulet, your rings, and your gloves are still good slots for this. So for the amulet slot, we'll definitely look at reanimation, as it's going to increase your minion damage by a big multiplier after they've been alive for 10 seconds minimum. So obviously we want to go to the dungeon and get that codex imprinted onto the amulet early on. Otherwise, for your rings and gloves, you could be looking at your classics of Grasping Veins and the Damned. Grasping Veins will provide an important chunk of crit strike chance and crit strike damage for yourself and the minions when you have so little during leveling. Meanwhile, the Damned will increase the shadow damage to curse afflicted targets, and since we're cursing anything and everything with Decrepify or Iron Maiden, well then it's just a good choice. Finally, running one defensive aspect is always worth considering during leveling, getting into early torment. Everyone usually goes with Juggernaut's aspect for its fat armor benefits, but there are other options like Disobedience if you find that. And we as Necromancers also get Hardened Bones for some flat damage reduction, which is brilliant. In regards to uniques, as we discussed earlier, the Ring of Mendeln is your top choice if you somehow find it during leveling. Your minions get empowered attacks that explode and physical AoE with it equipped. And in Season 11, that damage scales from your weapon damage even more. For runes and gems, it's just a bit more fluid. You find what you find and put it on. But of course, the classic Gar will provide you with up to 25% crit strike chance, which is a fantastic crutch while leveling and probably the priority. Anything that functionally funds this will work. Move to generate offering, evade, cast spells or different skills, spend resources, whatever you find during leveling to make it work. Otherwise, any other rune that you can use to make the build more survivable or better is great, literally max life, but there's also Zek, which will help reduce ultimate cooldown a bit for both defense and damage as a good option. Otherwise with gems, it's not worth worrying about. Maybe you slap in some stuff in your jewelry for defensive, or intel maybe in your armor, but this is going to be very fluid. Next, we have Mercenaries. As usual, it's Rahira and Vayana. Vayana as the main mercenary is great because she provides this nice amount of attack speed from 2 passives, whether that's the stacking one or just a flat increase one at the end, which is great for any early leveling build, but particularly good for minions as you get the attack speed to use your skills faster and they benefit from your attack speed. But Rahir provides Bastion, which as a backup is a really nice bit of damage reduction. But if you have Rahir as your main, he's going to be a great resource crutch for resistance and survivability, giving you 15% all res, and then Ground Slam makes the targets within take more damage. And if you stand inside that Bastion bubble for the damage reduction, you also get to deal more damage. So he's just a great crutch while early leveling, especially early torment. Then when it comes to Paragon, obviously we're not really doing this for a leveling build, but just to give you like a path to start with. Usually they give you the Eliminator to begin with, so it's just what you're forced into. So you stack intelligence as usual and get some increased damage to elites. And this is how I'll set up the board initially, giving some extra points to resistance if we reach the point where we need it. Then we move into our first board expansion, which I think is a good thing to start with minions. It's always Cult Leader. Your minions get a big damage multiplier for the 20% attack speed they have, up to a maximum of 100. So that's why we're stacking attack speed. And then, depends on what the glyph that you find, the first one you find is, that can actually fit in here. I like the idea of corporeal because you get movement speed and physical damage tying into each active minion. And of course, you're going to increase your summon survivability and damage, and can smoothly get all the intelligence you need to actually activate a 40 intelligence glyph while giving yourself more summon damage for every bit of extra intelligence you grab. But it really depends, like what's the first glyph or glyphs you're going to find. Whatever slots in here and you can activate, that's what you go for. But we'll properly update this in the early endgame build when we come back with that. But yeah, that brings us to the end. Our goal then is to use the minion leveling build here, a classic setup, to then blast into Torment. Early into that, you can focus on the Beast in the Ice to get the new Gravebloom unique mace, which is where I would definitely think about changing the build into the new Golem focus, once you're ready for that, not before. We'll have an updated early endgame build video for you guys shortly after launch, as usual. But for now, I hope this gives you a good idea of the leveling path and what you should be aiming for on the way. And by being in this minion leveling setup, it'll give you a relatively easy transition into a few different builds, but of course the new Golem build if that's what you go for. So yeah, until season launch, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.